This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 328.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Ramsey Majaba. I'm a solution engineer. I've been in the sales world for almost 10 years and have developed several friendships throughout my career. And my guest today, he goes by the name of Bill Balnave. I don't know what his real name is. He seems very mysterious, keeps traveling between the UK and the US. But he's the guest today, and we've been friends for a while. And I love talking to people who challenge me. I love talking to people who also agree with me and maybe push me and make me think in a different way. And the topic of discussion today came from the fact that both him and I were talking to different people around the same topic, which is being a professional solution engineer versus an amateur. There are a lot of amateurs, I find, in our world. They might be doing the job for years, but there's a big difference between being an amateur and being a professional, where I am an amateur basketball player. I've been doing it for years. I would show up every Wednesday, play my game, go home. I wasn't working on improving because I didn't have time. It was not my priority. And I find a lot of SEs, although they might look at, I'm trying to learn technology, they're not necessarily trying to improve their SE skills. So we kind of went into that discussion. So we're going to discuss what is an amateur, what is a professional, why are people who are amateurs remain amateurs, or what can they do to become professionals. So I hope you enjoy the show. Let's jump into the conversation with Bill. I am very happy to have you back on this podcast. You are one of my favorite people. I hope you know that.
Dude, I appreciate it. I'm happy to I love talking to you. So I'm just excited to have the invite to be back. So,
it's my pleasure, and the fact that we kind of both were talking about the same thing to different people is just amazing. And now I love talking to people who disagree with me, but I also love talking to people that agree with me, who are smarter than me. That makes me feel smart. So
it's fair. You gotta balance it out. For sure.
It's self-validation, right? It's our ego is fragile and we need it, especially since I went into sales. Who are you, by the way, for those who don't know you, and how are we good friends?
Oh yeah. Okay. For those who don't know me, I am currently the vice president of technical services, which translates into pre-sales and customer success for a company called Mesmo. I've been in pre-sales. It's the last time I'm going to say it because I hate saying pre-sales. I've been a sales engineer for I don't know, 25 years, maybe 30, something like that. 25, I think, is probably right. And 7 years ago, I connected with a guy named, no, maybe less than that, 5 years ago, connected with a guy named Chris White. Most people know Chris White, 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers. Picked up his book, actually got handed his book and looked at it and said, "This is cheesy. What an awful title. I will never read this book." And then one day in desperation, because I needed some inspiration for my team, I'm like, "Oh, I got this book. I'll read it." And it turned out to be really good. And I actually reached out to Chris and said, "Hey, Chris, great book. Thanks for writing it." So we connected, did some stuff together. And I feel like through him, that's how I got to you, because you had done some stuff with him.
Yep.
Longer ago. So you've known him longer than I have. And I started listening to We the Sales Engineers. And I very much appreciate the attitude that you bring to the role and to the podcast. It's like just very straightforward and no nonsense and transparent. And, as my mom would say, you call a spade a spade. So, there's no political correctness or smoothing over, sugarcoating. It's just, this is the way it is.
Which is funny because you say that, because the statement that I made to Chris, which he wants sugarcoated, and I'm like, nah, was there are some SEs that are pros and some SEs that are amateurs. And some people might hate the fact that I'm calling them amateurs, but that's really your fault. So this is the topic that you and I were talking about. I want to get to your thought process. How did you get First off, how do you find a professional SE? I'm not going to ask you about amateur because that wasn't your terminology. But if you want to answer that, feel free. But how do you define a pro?
No, look, a professional SE is somebody who, first of all, acknowledges that there's a set of skills that are necessary to being successful in this role, to being to be able to do this role properly, to get results, right? To obtain results, the set of skills you have to have. And that set of skills is something that you should work on a regular basis, just like a professional athlete works on the basic sets of skills that they need for whatever sport they're playing, along with, there's typically strength training, there's typically other like baseline things that they do. Then there's training that they do for whatever the sport is in their particular position. And, at any time, a pro athlete may have 2 or 3 different coaches and they're constantly working on stuff. To me, that's what it means to be professional. And I think there are SEs who take this role seriously and are constantly working on the soft skills, the demo skills, like industry knowledge and all of that stuff. And then I think there are SEs that just roll up and like, hey, I know how to demo. I don't need to practice. I don't need to dry run. I don't need to script anything out. I don't need, I know what I'm doing. And right. And they punch a clock and to start work, and then they punch out to go home. And then there are other SEs that are like, no, this is a real thing. Like, this is a gig. This is I don't know, whatever you want to say. And like, I'm going to treat it with a level of seriousness because I know the reason I'm in this job is because there's the amount that I get back from it in compensation and other things is based on how much I'm putting into it. And there is a direct correlation between the two.
Yeah.
Right. Where if I contrast, like I started my career at Ford Motor Company, whether I worked 30 hours a week or 80 hours a week, I got paid the same amount. Didn't really matter. And then there was some profit sharing based on how the company did.
Yeah.
When I became an SE, it was like there was a more direct correlation because any deal that I got involved in, right? Like I got a piece of that, and I got involved in deals because AEs looked at me and said, "Oh, this guy takes it seriously. Like he's one of the better ones. Like he likes selling. Like I want that guy on my deals."
Yeah. I mean, so the way I see amateurs, because I think the way you described professionals is amazing. And the amateurs, I feel like they know that there's a set of skills that they need to do to attain, but they're content with where they are. Like,
do you think that like you think they're basically choosing to be content, or like, because I kind of feel like maybe they know it, maybe they don't. And like,
yeah,
Ramsey, I will tell you, and it always fascinates me. I'll tell you, my first role as an SE, I received no sales training whatsoever. There were no soft skills training, none of that stuff. Like I got shipped to New York for a couple of weeks. This kind of gives away maybe who the company is. I got shipped to New York for a couple of weeks, and but it was all product.
yeah,
Because the product was really large and complicated, and
yeah,
SEs at the time at this company had to do the initial install because this was 30
yeah,
or 25 years ago when we were like installing software. So there was a lot to do with that, right? But I never got any of the training that really would have helped me be a very good SE, other than the feedback that I got from the rep that I was working for, who would tell me like, that demo stunk, like don't say that, say this, right?
yeah.
So in my mind, it wasn't until I got to Clarify where the SEs were actually included in sales training. And I had my first experience with solution selling, and solution sales training, value vision. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's a skill set here. Like there's actually stuff that you need to work on to be good at it. You can't just roll up and do it.
So here's the way I think about it. This day and age, that's not an excuse anymore.
So you think there's a level of awareness in the industry, like soft skills, really important, selling really important, like
I don't know if there's a level of awareness, but I know that if you're an SE and you're looking around and you say, "Oh, like something's off," now, like when I started with SEs, I started because there weren't any resources. Now there's a
right.
million of them,
There are more for sure.
right?
Agreed.
So
Yeah,
you
if you're
should,
on LinkedIn and you're not
yeah,
catching yes,
right.
agreed. Agree with
So
that.
yes, if people are still in the world where they're still doing post sales work and focusing on that things and they're like they have their head buried and doing that thing, I don't call them SEs at all. Like their title might be an SE, but they're not doing the SE role as it should be. So they're not even. I don't know. I don't even know how they got to the major leagues, if you will, of baseball or basketball or whatever. I don't know how they got there, and I don't know how they're still here. But that's why I was talking to another gentleman. He says 80% of SEs suck.
All right. So look, I will.
You can defend it. I'm not sure of the
No, I'm not.
number.
I am actually not going to contradict that at all. I won't say suck, but I'll say don't take the role seriously and don't understand the set of skills necessary to be successful in it. They're the folks that you call your amateurs, right?
Yeah.
Like look at any professional sport. I always point to golf. Like
Yeah.
the if you look at all the golfers in the world, 95% of them are amateurs. They do nothing to work on it. They roll up on Saturday morning or whatever once a month with their 6-pack of beer and they play the golf and blah 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 and like all of that. And then there's a set of folks that take that game seriously enough that they go to the range and practice a whole bunch, but like that's not pro level yet. Then there are folks that play in amateur tournaments and all that, still not at pro level. Then you go up a couple, 3 more levels, maybe you get to like the Corn Ferry Tour or the DP World Tour, a couple more levels, then you get to the PGA Tour. And I think for SEs, it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
I think there are, if you look at all the SEs, because look, there are lots of companies that hire SEs probably because they think they need to hire them. They haven't even evaluated whether or not they're like, hey, we're a software company, we're hiring sales guys, we've got to have SEs as well. And they bring them on and they say, here's your demo environment. Go demo. Good luck.
Yeah.
And that's all the investment that company makes.
Yep.
And that's all that this SE that gets hired, and that's all that person thinks is like, well, I got what I need. I'm good to go. And that person, guess what? They're not good. They're just not.
Well, I like that. I don't blame that person. I think you're kind of setting the person up for failure, right? You're getting someone who's never played basketball and putting him in the NBA against LeBron James. It's not gonna go so well for that person.
Yeah, it's pointless.
But you have a better chance than there aren't any LeBron James in our world. They tend to kind of get promoted or go into sales for some reason. So here's the question that I'm thinking about. A lot of the amateurs, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and they don't know that there's a set of skills that they need to learn. I think they do, but let's start step one. How, as a manager, or like right now, you're kind of handling the community for the 6 Habits certified team. So how do you get people to realize that there are a set of rules beyond doing this podcast? Let's say you don't have this podcast, you don't have this reach. How do you get people on a one-to-one basis to realize that?
Yeah, dude, look, it's ad hoc. You have to have the right manager. I had the right manager. When I joined Clarify, I had a manager, Jason McCarge, who took selling seriously. Okay. He worked with a sales leader who took selling seriously, and we did training, and we were part of that. And then he, as a manager, held me accountable to the standards that were established in training.
So are you saying it's luck, or can I do something about it?
Look, as an individual, can you? Yeah, of course. Because to your point earlier, there are lots of, I'm not going to say lots. There are resources.
Some resources,
right?
More than 10 years ago.
Way more than 10 years ago, right? There's the 6 Habits. So there's Tech Sales Mastery, 6 Habits. Totally promote it, love it. I think it's probably the most well-rounded SE training there is. But look, there's Mastering Technical Sales, John Kerr, and I work with John at HP. I know John, love John, great stuff. There are other, I think, kind of point. I'll call them point solutions. There's Demo to Win, a great demo and all that. Like that focus on certain skills, but maybe not the whole thing. Like all of that is there. So you have to decide as an individual that you want to take your career seriously and we want to do something about it and then pursue it. And I think that's what you're going after, right? Like you ultimately have to make the decision to do it.
Well, you kind of have to make the decision. But the one I want to bring up, you mentioned like, oh, there's the training and whatnot. But both John Kerr and Chris White and a bunch of other people have books that you can start with. It's not really, you don't really need to invest thousands of dollars right now out of your own pocket. And
No, that's true. That's fair.
so you can start with a book. There's a billion free resources. But my question is, how do you flip that switch? It's like from
Do
understanding
you,
you're an amateur to wanting to go into to be.
how did
What's
you do
what's
it?
the incentive?
How
I
did you do it?
well, how did I do it? I sucked as a sales engineer. I didn't know it, and my VP of sales said, "Ramsey, you didn't even do a discovery," and I didn't know what that
You're
was.
like, what the hell's discovery?
What is discovery? So
What is this, like a it's like, what is this, the law? Like, am I
yeah,
getting sued? I don't get it.
yeah, and I got passionate about it, right? Like I got obsessed a little bit, maybe a little bit. Some people might say a little bit too much, but I got obsessed.
So, dude, this is interesting. Then, is it fair to say that maybe one of the differences between a professional and amateur is there's a professional comes with a certain level of passion, a
Yeah,
certain desire to excel
I
in that role.
I think a certain level of obsession, even like
Uh,
all the great athletes are obsessed about what they do.
fair, fair, absolutely. So, I think that's an important part of it. I mean, to your original question of how does it happen? How do you get started? It's a combination. I think as with anything in life, it's a combination of stuff. Like there's a self-awareness
Yeah,
that you have that like I'm not as good as I want to be, or I'm not as good as I could be. And then there's a desire to like, okay, I need to get better, but then you have to decide like how far am I going to go
yeah,
to get better? What am I really going to go and look? Am I going to try? Am I going to look? If I rewind all the way back to when I started my career at Ford, like I started and I realized within a couple of years, like this wasn't doing it for me. It's not
what were you doing
satisfying.
at Ford?
I was programming. I was a programmer. I was an IT guy, like the quintessential IT guy, rolling up, sitting in front of my 3270 terminal, writing COBOL, running it, all that kind of stuff.
I
Like
don't even know what you're talking about.
exactly. Well, and then and look, I had the opportunity to do other stuff. I got into system administration. We had mini data centers inside of all the Ford buildings, and so that like all of that was kind of cool. But I knew that I wanted more. And I think most people get into the SE role because they realize like I want to do something more. They don't drop into being an SE or like out of university or typically as a first job, right? So they get into the SE gig typically because they want more. But I'll tell you I actually haven't told very many people this. Um, the the way that I got switched on to self-development though, which I think is really the key, is like I wanted to make some more money and I had a guy, one of my friends was selling Amway and he's like, dude, this is like it's amazing. I'm making money. Like what I like. So I got into it. And the thing with Amway, despite the fact that it's like not a real business and hard to do and all that stuff, they got me switched on to like you need to be educating yourself. It's your responsibility to educate yourself. And as an Amway rep, like there was a library of books at the time, cassette tapes, recordings of speakers, like, and it's like you need to listen to these guys, you need to read these books, you need to be educating yourself. If you're not educating yourself, then you're not going to be successful. And that's despite the fact that I failed miserably at Amway, the one thing that I took away from it was self-education. And so I pivoted away from, kind of the stuff that Amway was touting. And I found, guys like Peter Drucker and like Andy Groves and things like that. And I started reading that kind of stuff. And I realized like this is applicable in the business world. And like it's something that as a person who wants to be successful, and I think there's the key, as a person who wants to be successful and not just punch a card, like that's what you need to do.
Okay. Many questions, but I want to start off with this. How do you explain what a cassette tape is for those who don't know?
So before there was digital music, there were CDs. And before there were CDs, there were cassette tapes. I know.
I was trying to explain that to my kids. Like, oh, you used to put the pen in and turn it to back it up. Like, what are you talking about?
It's so funny. Like,
Yeah.
this little thing goes around and it reads the music off the magnetic strip, and like.
So here's the funny thing that just popped into my mind. Like, what the cassette tape is something from the '90s or like maybe even
80s,
before.
70s.
So I was a '90s kid, right? Like I was born in the '80s, and I was a '90s kid. We had cassette tapes, at least in Lebanon. Um, Here, like in terms of communication, there's like ATM and TDM, and there's still those things are still working in most companies. They still use ATM and TDM, whereas
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
like
yeah.
cassette, we laugh at cassettes, but people are still using that sort of thing. Anyway, uh, is there? Oh, so people would want to self develop,
Yeah, you got. I think you have to have the desire to want to improve.
but if someone's doing the job, is there anything wrong with being an amateur?
No,
Okay, so we're not judging anyone. Well,
no.
I'm all about shaming people. I mean, you could be doing more, but I can tell you that it took a lot of sacrifice from my end with 3 kids and all that to actually become a better SE. So, yeah, like I can see where at some point I don't want to put this much effort in. And so, but
Look, I think though, if you're going to take on the SE role, you have to come to terms with the fact that it is not an 8 hour a day job, that it is not regular hours, that the demands of a person in a sales organization are different. And you have to be, I think, not only good with that, but embrace it. and
yeah,
it took me a little bit, because look, I worked for Ford for like 9 years. Like, so I was very used to that whole mentality of like 8 hours, and then you went home and like you did your home stuff, and then you did your job stuff, and then you did your home stuff. And then when I, became an SC, it was like, oh, wait a minute, like we got to travel. We've got to like, I got a rep calling me at 10 o'clock at night because he's worried about something going for, some demo for the next morning and all of that. And it took me a little bit of time, but I got over the hump and realized like that's how you win. Like if you transition into, look, I'm putting a lot of time in. Let me back up. Like maybe this was part of the problem that I had at Ford too, because it was like, all right, I'm working 8 hours a day, but does it make sense to work 8 hours, miserable 8 hours, and then the 4 or 5 hours that you got that was yours, like that was your happiness, and the weekend and the 2 weeks of vacation or 4 weeks of vacation, like that didn't make any freaking sense to me. Why not do a job that you actually really love doing, so that when you're doing it, you're excited to be doing it. You're not worried about keeping the hours.
yeah.
You're not looking at the clock going, when am I done?
So, all right. I think a lot of people start off with sales engineering excited about it and in love with that role. And as they do it for a while, is it possible? I feel like I know from myself, if I don't do something to excite myself, it might turn into one of those. It feels like it's 9 to 5 job. I'm doing all the work. The person's getting all the credit. Why should I put in this much hours? Maybe I should just go into sales, or I wish I could just go back to sitting in front of a computer and coding for 8 hours and not have to worry about my customer. How do you maintain the motivation for your team or for yourself?
Yeah, dude, look, I would tell you, like, I think I went through a lot of that, and it caused me to change companies,
Right.
right? To get with salespeople to get with people that I liked working with.
Yep.
It caused me to go for different roles in those companies. And I mean, it, ultimately, like when I got to Mercury, I loved just being an SE at Mercury. Like it was the right balance of like, I loved the people that I was working with. I loved the product. Like I was into it. I felt like I was constantly learning more. Opportunities were always exciting. Like I never felt like it was like I was punching a clock.
Yeah.
Um, and even at HP, the same kind of way. Although toward the end, it was like middle management on board. Aptio was 100% like that. I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like I'm enjoying it. So my point is like you got to find the right company and the right team,
Yeah.
and then also realize like it's not going to last forever and it's going to change, and then you're going to have to go find a different company and a different team or a different role to do.
So the way you're talking about sales engineering as in golf, but the way I'm seeing it more, it's more of a like football or any like team sport, right?
Yeah.
Where because it's not just about you motivating yourself. You kind of have to be in a situation where you want to, like it's fun, right?
You
You
got to
want
have the
to,
right
yeah,
environment. Yeah,
yeah,
you got to have the right circumstances of like it's the combination of the product and the people
yeah,
that you're working with in the industry, and on top of the role. It can't just be like I couldn't go be an SE anywhere because I wouldn't
yeah.
enjoy it.
Oh man, I've been in sales for the last few years, and I'd love to go back in sales engineering. My concern is if I go become a sales engineer somewhere and I have a salesperson that sucks, right? Uh, and I'm looking at it like, I know I can actually do your job. I'm not one of those SEs who thinks they can do your job. I know I can do your job. So yeah, like having the right environment for you, like even Tom Brady. For those who don't watch football, he was the best quarterback ever. I guess that's kind of
I
fair.
mean, yes, arguably the best quarterback to ever play.
Yeah, and even he had to move from a place where he played for like 15 years or more and go somewhere else that's warmer and that's different. Right? So
And succeeded there too, right?
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So it's you don't always have to like go uphill. Sometimes it's nice to find a place where it feels like you're going downhill.
But I think the other thing too, and I wish I would have told myself this. Like if I were to go back in time, I hate looking backwards. But if I were to look backwards and go like, oh, I moved too quickly. There, I was a little too ambitious. Like,
Yeah,
you have to be able to temper that drive to succeed with patience and with the ability to enjoy the position
yeah,
that you're in. Look, I'll tell you, the SE, if you love technology, being an SE is one of the best jobs in the planet. And if you're not taking time to appreciate it, like you're missing out
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
By the way, professionals, they appreciate it.
yeah. But
That's what drives them to
yeah.
do the work, to put the work in.
And the thing I just like that popped in my head when you were speaking was don't wait for yourself to be desperate. Like you're completely unmotivated to start looking to move,
Yeah.
right? Because that's where you do desperate moves, and like sometimes it could be a bad move. If you're starting feeling yourself going for that negative trend, hopefully you would have built your well or dug your well way ahead of time, and you have connections.
Well, it's almost like, look, you as most sales organizations do some kind of QBR, right? Some quarterly business review. They get together, talk about what happened in the quarter, talk about what
Not
they're doing
mine.
in the next quarter. Okay. Most professional sales organizations do. Like you should be doing that on a personal basis as well. And quarterly, I think, is about the right amount of time to do that. Like you should think about what you want
Yes.
out of your role, what you want it to do for you, what you're willing to give it, and go, okay, so next quarter, these are the things that I'm going to do, and I'm going to work on it, and this is what I expect from the job. And like that should then be the barometer that tells you like, all right, I'm not necessarily in the
Yeah.
right place.
It's so interesting. I actually wrote a blog about how being the CEO of your life, right? And
Yeah.
and when you work for companies, every year they're expecting growth, right? We expect 10% growth. Your quota went up by 10%. Congratulations. But
Yeah.
for us as individuals, we don't think, all right, I want my paycheck or my salary to go up by 10%. We just whatever the company gives us, we'll take, or we might
Yeah.
negotiate.
You're willing to take it, right?
Or yeah,
Wait.
we negotiate. No, like I want 10% growth, and if I can't make it with this company, then I have to make it with some other company, or get a side hustle, or go drive Uber, whatever it is that I need to do to achieve my goal. But we also like we have to do those reviews to know where we stand and where we want to go. Because I I can tell you for the longest time I didn't know where I wanted to go because I didn't know where I stood. I didn't know where I was right now.
Dude, I would add into that, and I would say if you aren't not only kind of looking of you at yourself as the CEO of your own business, if you're not putting a dollar value on your time,
Yeah.
you're missing out. And so like if you read Naval Ravikant's book, his whatever, I forget what it's called. He talks about like you need to assign yourself for your service provider. You
Yeah.
provide services to the company that you work for. You should assign sit down, assign a dollar value to what your hourly rate is to provide that service, and then that's what you should demand. And if you're not getting that, you like that's part of going and finding it. Like that's your sense of value.
I brought up like Naval Ravikant to say, hey, is this the book? But he has like 600 books. But Axel, is
Yeah,
it
it's like, but it was not. It wasn't written by him. Actually, it's like the.
the
Oh,
wisdom, the wisdom of Naval
I
Ravikant?
think it's the wisdom. I think that's what it's called. Is the wisdom
Eh,
of.
by Brian Andrew Madrid.
Yeah. That's the one. That's the one.
That's the one. I added to the list. Okay.
Yeah, I forget, and I actually forget where I got that
Well,
recommendation, but whatever, it doesn't
that's-
matter. Like I read it, and I'm
Chris
like,
White.
that's
It was just
brilliant. Yeah,
Chris White told you to read it. So,
probably. No, it wasn't Chris.
no, Chris White told you to read it. He's the Godfather. So, okay. Yeah, so we need to motivate ourselves. We need to. I'm just trying to review what we just talked about.
Yeah. There's self-development, there's
Yeah,
self-motivation, like all of that is a key part of being a professional.
yeah. Or you
Good
could
professional.
just stay where you are, and be content. I guess.
Look, dude, if you're happy, I knew lots of guys at Ford that they were just looking at their 401k and their
I,
pension and like watching the number go up, and they were happy with that. Like that was good.
were they happy or were they afraid to have change?
Look, I think, yeah, like it's a fair question. I think there were some that were genuinely happy with that, and then because they accepted that was the way of the world, and then there were some that were like,
That's the thing.
well, I'm not happy with it, but I don't know any better, nor do I have the guts to go do anything differently. So
It's funny. Tim Ferriss says happiness is reality minus expectation. So if reality is better than expectation,
you're
then
good.
you're happy. If expectation is higher than reality, then you're not
Well,
very
and how many people then totally reset their expectations because it's their expectations are always bigger than their
yeah.
reality, and then they're like, well, screw it, I'm just gonna like go ahead and
I mean, I can tell you my expectations are always better than reality. And I've learned to not necessarily temper my expectation, but maybe give it a longer time period to achieve it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Well, this is becoming a philosophical discussion, but that's what happens when I talk to you. So,
and there it is.
yeah. Professor Bill.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Please don't call me that.
Why not? Now I'm going to have to
Go
call you that.
Dr. Bill.
Do you have a PhD?
I don't.
Oh, okay. So it's
no, and I'll confess, I got a semester and a half into my master's degree, and I said, God, I hate school so much, and just stopped.
Yeah, I got a semester into my master's degree, master's in science to be specific. But I entered it because I couldn't find a job. But then I found a job right before I started. So I did one semester. I'm like, yeah, it's not worth it for me.
Done.
So
I'm out.
I went and did master's in engineering and management, like an idiot. It has not helped me one bit. So my recommendation is don't do it.
Don't do it. I was going for a master's of science in operations management because I was at Ford and I wanted to be part of like production, building cars.
Okay. Ford? All right. I have so many jokes, but I'll just
fair enough.
Okay. I find like when we go to university, a lot of us get beat down and we're taught like this is the way of doing things. This is how we do it. This is how you write a lab. This is how we. And when we leave university and we go find a job, this is how we do it. How did beyond Amway? I guess Amway was the way. How do you get people like your employees right now, your SEs right now? How do you motivate them to self-develop? Because you can't self-develop on their behalf.
No, I can't. And it's a good question, and I'm thinking about it now, and especially with the team that I have now. I'll confess, like I'm trying to think of a time in my career when I had somebody that didn't want to improve in some way, move up, get a promotion, get paid more, get the raise, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I think in the couple of cases where I had people like that, like they weren't on my team very long. Like it was like, I'm sorry, because I think as a as a people manager, if you're not communicating this, like, your responsibility is communicate the standard. Like, this is what good looks like. This is what adequate, minimum viable performance, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is what acceptable is.
Yeah.
And in these facets. And if you're not operating to that, I need you to operate to that. Otherwise, like, this is not the role for you.
Yeah.
And I guess that's always been my approach. And I never thought of like firing somebody as like, you suck. I thought of it as like, either you're not interested
Yeah.
in this role, or the skill set, the match just isn't there. And someplace there's a role for you where you can excel. This isn't it.
So how do you find the people who want to excel? That's like, we do interviews. We do 6-7 rounds of interviews. Most of the time, it could vary from company to company. I find that at the end of the interview, I don't know if that person's gonna be self-motivated. They might have the potential, but is anything gonna come from it? So how do you know as a
There's
manager?
no way to know. I don't think there's any way to know completely, right? I think it's a combination of, in interviewing, asking people for very specific stories, like, and lots of detail. I find myself, I like, especially in an interview, a lot of times when you ask a question like, hey, give me an example of a time when you worked on a really large deal and what was your role in it, they still talk at a very abstract, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, no, who was the customer? What? Oh, you can't tell me the name. That's fine. What size? How big was the customer? What industry was the customer in? Like, what? Okay, great. What was the customer's problem? What were you trying to solve for? Who were you speaking with at the like? And once you start to tease those details out, and you have the person kind of walk through what they did, I think you're going to get a bit of an assessment of, well, I did an adequate job, or like, man, I really got into it. I went above and beyond. I made a demo that was more than this. I got, I did, I created my own relationship as an SE with the customer, and like, I got to know them really well. Like, you know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
tell those things. And then I think the other way that you tell is reference check. And man, it's funny. Like, most companies are like, well, give me 1 or 2 references. I'm like, I need to talk to 2 sales reps that you worked with. I need to talk to a former manager. I need to talk to another SE that you work with. Like, I'm going to learn more about you from those other people than I'm going to learn from talking to you, because you're
Yeah.
selling me. And so I want to make sure you can sell me, by the way, because you're going into a sales role. But
Yeah.
then I want to talk to a bunch of other people around you. So, and like, thank God for LinkedIn, because sometimes it's real easy to look at a person's profile and be like, oh, I know that person, they're connected to that person. Like, I can call, I can back channel, I get a sense for, what is this person really like?
I'm trying to think, like, if you were to interview me and I have to give you a couple of salespeople, there aren't any 2 that I would give.
Well, dude, I wouldn't ask. I know you better. Like, I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
ask
yeah,
you for a
but,
deal.
like,
I wouldn't ask you for one.
but let's say I'm talking to somebody else, and it's like, oh, give me 2 salespeople. It's like, I have the current salesperson that works with the same company, which I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to let them know that I'm leaving that company.
Yeah, you can't.
Right? And 2 that I hated. Right. So
kind of SOL.
yeah. Well, I guess that implies something about me. So that's good enough there. I'll give you
Does not play well with others.
yes. All salespeople suck. No, I'm joking.
I mean, that's right. But look, in a way, there's something to be said about that too. Like, people with standards, like, have a low tolerance for people that don't have standards. So
yeah, I'll go with that.
wow, that'll get me in trouble.
That's good. And then, like, we're coming up, like, towards the end of our call. Is there something that you wanted me to ask you, or something else that we should have discussed that I didn't bring up?
I don't know, dude. I think there's potentially a lot of things. Like, as you think about your listeners, like, what is something that you think they're dying for us to talk about that we're not talking about now?
Something they're dying for us to talk about that we're not.
It's interesting. Like, I'll go out on a limb, and I'll say, like, I find a lot of SE related podcasts to be overly positive.
Yeah. You want to talk about the crap that we have to handle?
I mean, it's just, You know what I'm saying? Like,
I already told you that I had two salespeople that I didn't really get along with. I mean, we sold, I hit quota, but there was a lot of salespeople management, like managing the salespeople.
look, if I look at the best salespeople that I've known in my career, a majority of them are a pain in the ass. They just
Yeah.
really are, and it's unfortunate and that's kind of the way of things. And yeah,
Well,
I don't know,
so
I don't know what to say other than like there's a point in your career where you go, if I'm making money from this person, I'm going to go ahead and deal with. But if I'm
yeah.
not making money from this person, then
So
I'm not gonna.
here's the thing about that. You did you watch The Last Dance about Michael Jordan?
No,
So Michael
no,
Jordan,
I will now though. I
yeah.
didn't. Yeah,
So it's on Netflix. Michael Jordan was a pain in the ass for all of his teammates. He required a certain standard. You were talking about the
yeah,
standard earlier. I don't
yeah.
mind that, but the problem is I like the when they're being a pain in like for the salespeople. Like talking about salespeople management, sometimes they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, those aren't good sales reps though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like
So
I'm
that
talking about
that
sales
kind,
reps that like they have a particular way of doing things. It's their way. They don't adhere to anybody else's way, but they're successful.
yeah, and that's perfectly fine. You're the leader. I will follow you if we're gonna end up successful, right? But if
It can create friction though, right? Because like I think of one sales rep in particular who was phenomenally successful, but he broke a lot of the rules that we as SEs and SE leaders like adhere to. Like
yeah,
you can't do like don't do a demo unless you have discovery. Don't do out of the box harbor tour demos. Don't
yeah,
just show up. Don't do blah like if you don't have these criteria met, then it's not really a deal. So
yeah,
stop working on it and all. Like the guy ignored all
yeah.
that stuff.
So I'm tied 1-to-1 with my salespeople usually, or right now my SE is tied 1-to-1 to me. Um, so if I'm working with a single salesperson who knows exactly what they're doing, yeah, they're skipping steps. They built the relationships. He has an instinct for something.
Yeah,
Right, all right, fine. I'll follow you. Like I'm gonna give you leeway, especially initially when I'm trying to learn how to work with that person. I'm gonna give you leeway,
yeah, fair enough.
and then if I find you failing, I'm gonna take that like leeway back. But if you're succeeding, I'm following you, right? That's the thing that I was doing. Like there, I was giving you leeway, and you were failing miserably, and I'm telling you you're failing. Let's try something else. Like no, no, no. I still know what I'm doing. Like mm,
Yeah,
no, right?
that at that point, it's kind of like, man,
Yeah,
you gotta really work on your habit one. Like it's
yeah.
real. Then have the habit one becomes really kind of difficult.
But habit one is also difficult when you're tied 1-to-4, right? Or when it's a pool model, right? And that's
For sure.
where I think the friction comes in. Okay, this is our process as an SE team, right? It's not an individual thing anymore. Like I can
Yeah.
work with my salesperson. Talk to me. I'll talk to you. We'll figure stuff out. But
Yep.
if I'm working with I'm one SE in a pool of 5 SEs working with 20 salespeople, right? And each one's doing different things, then like it'll be harder to manage in terms of you're breaking the rules. And although I want to help you, I can't. This is our process, right? And then you have to figure out, like, all right, maybe he does know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe that's some of
I-
that's the thing. I always say it's easier to debug technology than it is to debug humans,
for sure.
right? And sales engineering is a human business, right? Where you have so many
You.
different customers, right? It's not just the end customer.
That is so quotable, and that is I think that is there's one thing that most SEs don't get.
Yeah.
It's a human business. It's not a technology business. You're not a technologist.
Yeah.
You got to be about the human.
Yeah, and like we always talk about our worst customer. Our worst customer is usually the salesperson,
Yeah.
right? Because they have access to your bosses and your boss's bosses, and they can send you mean emails, and they can demand stuff. Customers are usually nicer than salespeople. So
Yeah.
if
Amen.
if you can
100%.
manage your salesperson, you can build a relationship with that person, you'll be fine.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, there you go. And there's a measure of a good SE. Like, how well do they manage the worst sales person? And I'll tell you what, when I'm interviewing SEs, That's always one of my questions. Tell me the worst sales rep you worked with, and like, give me the detail. Like, let's get into it. Why was that person the worst? Like, what did you do to deal with it? Like, how did you, you know,
Yeah.
tells a lot about PLC.
My first performance review with my SE manager as an SE for the first year, I got the highest marks mainly because I managed the worst salesperson they know. Right? They paired me with the worst salesperson they know, uh, and I was able to manage him, and I got the greatest feedback. So hey, it worked in my favor.
That guy didn't know that guy had no idea what hit him. He had no idea what he was getting into.
Well, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I was. He's part of the reason. Remember when I said so last? For those who don't know, last week I met with Bill, part of the Six Habits Mastermind, and the question you were asking is, what would you tell your previous self? And it would be diversify your learning, because all I learned was from that guy and how to be a crappy SE.
That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, full circle.
That the context is very different. I think about that very differently now. I mean, it's good advice, like diversify your learning, but now in the context of like, yeah, because I was learning from this one guy who
Yeah,
wasn't very good.
we,
Like
we
that's
were doing spray and pray. He's the reason I didn't know what discovery was. Well, I take responsibility. I never went out and looked. Right, I didn't even know there was a set of
you were
things.
unconsciously incompetent. You didn't know what you didn't know. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I was very
Which
incompetent.
Yeah, which I think at this point, like if you're in that position, then you're not looking around. Like it's definitely different now.
Yeah. And I give credit to my senior VP of sales who came all the way to Canada to tell me, Ramsey, you didn't know what discovery was, which made me consciously incompetent.
Yes.
Step number one. So
yeah, exactly. Admit the problem.
do you remember like your piece of advice? I don't remember what your piece of advice to yourself was when you mentioned it last week on the call. Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I. You know what? Hold on a minute. It was more to do with like. You know what? Like, so I was just looking at because Jack Cochran had sent me a quick message. He's like, "Hey, here was everybody's thing." He for me, he wrote, my piece of advice was stay professional. What it was I was like, look, there's a certain culture in a sales organization, right, that I wasn't used to, and you can get caught up in that culture where there's a lot of people having fun and partying, and we're in sales, and right, and if you're trying to impress a lot of people, like you can get caught up in that side of it, and you can stay out too late and roll into meetings late and all that kind of stuff. And like, the advice I would have given my first SE self was like, dude, don't get caught up in that. Don't be that guy.
Did you get
too many of those
in that? Did you get caught up in that?
A little bit. My first, oh my God, like my first SE gig. It was the culture on the Detroit team was very like, work a little, play a lot.
Yeah. Actually, one of my clients had that, and he messaged me, he's like, "Hey, how do I deal with this?" I'm like, because it's like, hey, SE team, let's go out and have drinks. SE team, let's go out and have drinks.
There's a bit of peer pressure, of all of that, like and you, if you get caught up in it, then and you think like, well, hey, the boss is drinking, I need to drink with the boss, and that's going to get me in, and I'm going to help me. That's going to help me advance and all that, and like, it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, my response to him was like, well, you have a family, so you don't always have to go, right? You can say, sorry, I can't go. But also, when you do go, you can get club soda, right? You don't have to buy a drink.
Well, that's just it, right? Yeah. You can have one or two and then be done. You can go for a little bit and then leave, right? You don't have to stay out all night. You don't have to
show your face.
And guess what? If you're gonna stay out all night, have your ass up the next morning and be on time. Like,
that's people. Like I remember when we went to the sales kickoffs, I would show up to the first meeting at 8:00 in the morning, and most of the salespeople are like falling asleep. That, granted, they didn't really need to be there, to be honest, because they didn't add any value. Dude, my sales kickoffs were more PMs talking about marketing slides.
Right? Fair enough.
The best part. Go ahead.
My prayer for you is that the next company that you work for has just amazing salespeople. You deserve to work with amazing salespeople.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope so too. Because if I end up leaving this company and then working with a crappy salesperson, I don't know what I would do with
Oh
myself.
my God.
just,
Uber, here I
just,
come.
just. I know. I'll just stop. I'll do that everything. Just leave me alone. I'll like, just go take a break.
Yeah.
Go take a break. I'll take
Go
care of
home.
everything.
I don't
Yeah,
need you.
I don't really need you. I've done this job before, but no, I really hope like when I change jobs, we'll see how it goes. I love coaching people, so it's like with WDSEs, so that's the fun part of my job. I get to do that part. So
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
yeah.
And you're good at it. So,
Well, I appreciate that. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts? Because we already did
dude, this was fun, and I hope this isn't the last time.
it will never be the last. Even if there's no more podcasts anymore, these conversations we'll
Yeah,
just record them for fun.
I love it. All right.
And that's the end of the show. Let me know what you think. Do you think you're a professional SE or an amateur? And either way, there's nothing wrong. If you just identified as an amateur but you want to be professional, what are you going to do about it? If you're an amateur and you want to stay amateur, that's great. If you're making money, you're taking care of your family, again, there's nothing wrong with being an amateur. I would hate to be a professional basketball player. Well, I don't know if I would hate it. I'm 41, so maybe I wouldn't right now, but at some point, maybe I would have loved it. Maybe I wouldn't have wanted to do all the sacrifices that professional basketball players need to go through to become professional and great at what they do. Anyways, that's it. Let me know what you think. And I'll catch you next time. With that, I am signing off.